Thank you, organizing this great event. I want also to thank Moran here from AWS. This business development.
Do you have your LinkedIn QR?
Just to introduce myself real quick, so I'm Dudi, an account manager at AWS.
No, Rachel will remember who the heck I am.
The whole point of this event
There we go.
basically talk about innovation, talk about agents. We brought the best-in-class leaders to the panel, and later on, to fireside chat with Byron. Yeah, let me get started. So let me introduce you to Erin Kraemer. Where is she?
Erin Kraemer.
Erin Kraemer. She will be the panel speaker, moderator. Thank you.
Welcome, Erin.
Let's bring in Eric from Band, CEO and co-founder. Erin from Sawmills, CPO and co-founder. Galvin David from PoinFive, CPO and co-founder. And Liv from Noma Security. Sorry. Yeah, let's get started.
Sit down. When I go to Georgia. Guys, let me, you
People do that all the time.
Yes, together. Cozy is good.
Hello, everyone. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. So hi, my name is Erin Kraemer. I'm a Senior Principal Technical Product Manager for AWS Agentic AI, which is the world's longest title ever. I've been at Amazon for about 26 years, getting to build lots of really fun things. But about a year or so ago, they asked me to join AWS's Agentic AI organization because we had some really cool, fun things that we needed to build. When I started looking at what all these folks were doing, I was like, wow, these problems feel familiar, but now we have cool new ways of solving them. So I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves first, and then we'll get into it.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Band, and what we're doing is basically building a platform that allows distributed autonomous agents to collaborate. Think about WhatsApp or Slack for agents.
Woo!
Hey everyone, my name is Gal. I'm the co-founder and CTO at PoinFive. Previously, I was the CTO of a cybersecurity company called Insights. And that's it. PoinFive is basically a cloud and AI cost optimization solution, probably something that's related to AWS. And that's it.
Hello guys, Nick, co-founder and CEO of Noma Security. What we do is helping organizations, especially enterprises, with the AI and agent by providing them the right security and governance from source and part of the process.
Hi everybody, Erin from Sawmills. I lead the product at Sawmills, co-founder as well. Sawmills is in the telemetry management space. When I say telemetry, I mean load event tracing metrics, basically optimize that data for you and move you from sending tens of terabytes of telemetry data daily to 90% less. We also know how to generate a lot of context from telemetry data that can be used downstream by agents.
All right, there's a Mr. Friend.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things I was observing as I was kind of looking through all of your companies and what you're doing is that each of you seems to be building something where the volume of data, the volume of sort of telemetry communications, things that you were digging through, were previously either untenable at scale previously, or in your case, a new massive volume. Given that in many cases there's been prior solutions on this stuff, what was the epiphany that you had that made you say, I want to take a run at this telemetry thing again? This is worth my time.
Yes, that's a great question. I think for us, it started about 2 years ago, and we saw that today the way companies are managing telemetry is essentially DevOps or SRE fighting over with engineering teams to basically clean their stuff, and that's done very manually. And the reason that had to be done this way is because people need to look at the data and figure out what is that? Do we need this? Do we not need this? Is that noise? Is that junk? And when LLMs came to fruition, essentially, what we realized is that now we can reason at scale. We can look at some data and understand the actual meaning of it. And so once we could automate that, then we can actually move from doing things very manually to doing things automatically.
So I know you I asked you this question before, but as you are sort of filtering out sort of signal to noise, how do you know that you're actually catching the right signal and that not filtering out things that matter?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and all of our customers ask the same question. And I think the gist of it is, first of all, telemetry data is super noisy. So most of it, I would say above 85% is complete junk. Nobody's using it, nobody sees it, and you're all paying for it. Right? AWS makes a lot of money. We essentially put things in patterns and cluster them, and then we actually reason over them. So it's very easy to know. There's a lot of cues in the data itself to know what's meaningful and what's not meaningful, and then we could we flag those and understand what to keep and what to basically throw away.
So Phil, I wanted to talk to you about similar questions. So having been somebody who got to run large-scale efficiency programs at Amazon in my career, again, sort of cost efficiency isn't a new thing, but what made you want to go after this problem space?
So I think at Insights, the previous company, we felt there are plenty of different tools in the market. Every investor we've met said, like upfront, just so you know, this is one of the most crowded spaces we've ever seen. So please tell us what's the difference about you. I think what led us to actually decide to go on this journey and now in a very crowded space was that we felt that this problem hasn't been solved yet. So most companies were concentrating on actually showing you how much you spend and how they were trying to solve the biggest problem, which was back then aggregating different cloud spend into the same place, helping you to actually slice and dice the data and visualize it. But when you're coming from a cybersecurity company, your state of mind is completely different, and you're trying to focus on what is actionable, what can you do to actually make a difference, and the terminology is completely different, like triaging and distributing and making it a team effort to actually solve the problems. So, and detection, like try to detect the problems, not to show you raw data. And I think we brought a completely different, refreshed state of mind and mindset to the FinOps/cloud cost optimization space. And we've seen a huge opportunity and just decided to pursue it. That's basically it.
Okay. Nick, one of the things that I think your business and security depends on is lots of data. So as your peers are starting to, cut things back and reduce noise and things like that, even I know when we were doing log4j remediation, we were looking at utilization spikes as a data source to figure out which machines it got from. So, how does the reduction in data interact with your security work?
In general, I think that many problems that we saw in the past in security, we see them again, we're just see them amplified now because of the pace of the technology and also this the volume. So in our case, also all the false positive areas and stuff like that is a crucial point because once we have we see already organizations with hundreds of thousands of agents that they never stop, they never eat, they never sleep. So the amount of data that we need to work with is endless. And the number one problem that it creates is also all this kind of false positive. What we believe that in agent security and governance is mandatory is we have a lot of contextualization between the data. And as part of it is also partnering with a lot to get all this data from where the agent already exists. So we integrate directly to AWS, to Databricks, to Azure, to the endpoint agents that are already deployed. We get all the data from everywhere, and we ingest it all together in order to get the true specific context of what the agent is doing right now in order to define if this is a legit or not legit action.
So if I get it correctly, you are using both agents to help secure, but also you are building security for agents, correct? Okay. And how are you basically at scale, making sure that your own agents are not from that?
It's a great question. So first, I think that you need a multi-layer of defense. Some of them, they have to be deterministic. You want to define some level of static guardrails. Today, it's almost a curse to say deterministic. Everybody wants only non-deterministic technology. But no, some of the deterministic elements of the technology is also a lesson, not only a curse. users. And so you need to define the static guardrails and the least privilege definition that you want to take around this agent. And then also like combine it with the non-deterministic layer and or with the dynamic guardrails that you want to have like on the agent as part of like the runtime operations, because you do want to save also like level of freedom in order for agents to get like the predictability and the profit that you want them to get from the agent.
Okay, all right, Erin, I want to come to you because you're doing something that's slightly different, but I think it's really quite cool and new for the agent space is how do agents collaborate with each other. So, as you're doing that, obviously you've got security issues and things like that, but you're also thinking a little bit about like how do we know that agents are trustworthy? So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, so obviously there are a lot of challenges in agent collaboration that we don't even start to comprehend, right? And as we will build multi-agent systems and they will become more complex, we will uncover those issues that today for humans we basically take for granted. Basically the problem with agentic collaboration is that a lot of the things that for humans we take for granted, they don't work for agents. Agents were not built for collaboration. They were built to do very, very specific tasks as well as possible, and that's a challenge. How do we ensure that agents are trustworthy? Is today we depend very, very strongly on humans who design those agents and onboard them to the platform because we're still at a pre-scale stage. Because we will move into a plus-scale stage where we would have, every enterprise would have thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of agents. Obviously then we will not be able to depend only on the one-liner definition a human operator puts when publishing an agent to an enterprise platform, and we will need to have their performance measurement as an API. I think we discussed that on a prep call, like the ranking economy, right? Like how like agents would have stars and they would have costs associated to them. And there will be a lot of questions how, for example, to divvy up a cost that of a task that was performed by 5 different agents that belong to 5 different departments, and the token cost is associated and tied to 5 different budgets, right? How we do back charging and resettlement of what token economy brings to the enterprise, right? And I think it's all still ahead of us. We're still working on the basic task of how have non-deterministic entities talk to each other across an enterprise.
So I presume that you also bring humans into those conversations as well. So tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, obviously today human in the loop is very important. I think it will stay forever. And I think humans are important from 2 perspectives. I think first of all, businesses still cannot run without us. So we're still a very important bottleneck. And we have a lot of approval processes need human collaboration. So for us, human and an agent on the platform are very similar entities, and we don't differentiate between them. At least apparently on the UX experience, right? So the human can be called into the system. Think about like Slack, right? So you would have humans on the Slack, and you would have agents there, and they would work together, and you wouldn't be able to say who's an agent and who's a human. But humans also play a role, a different role, right? They also the AI ops who ensure that these agents work appropriately. Because if you have one agent that you need to make that agent work properly, and we've heard about that. For me, it could be a difficult task. Just one agent. Imagine you have a system of 5 agents. Even if each and every one of them works perfectly individually, doesn't mean that they will work well as a team. Exactly like with humans, right? And you will need to retrain them to work as a team, just like you do for humans, right? So that kind of creates that second challenge, but also an important task for humans to do until they will be replaced by other agents who will train agents, etc., etc.
I mean, honestly, I think I want all 4 of your things together because I think it's going to be an interesting balance between like getting that telemetry out of the system and being able to secure and make them trustworthy, and then just not spending way too much money as I get them all working together. So I wanted to pivot a little bit. So I think all of you are not first-time founders, right? This is not your first person. So I kind of wanted to get your perspective on with kind of in the age of AI and things like that, like, what's going different this time? How are you able to think differently about solving problems?
Yes, I think one of the things that we're seeing is that things are definitely speeding up way faster than they used to be. If you asked me 12 months ago, I think we're all going to have agents, and I was talking to customers, are you using agents? And I was here, it's an LLM and a tool, but it's not really agents. And then one bright morning last December, agents are not there. And so this time it's definitely the technology leap is way faster, and it's like my only thing that I look back and I look to the future is also like, not a lot of people are doing, agent collaboration, but it's coming. And it's not just coming in theory, it's coming. So that's to me my biggest difference is that the technology is moving at a different pace. And as much as founders, you want to solve the problems for now, you have to look to what's coming because it's around the corner.
Build the company that I worked in other companies before. I'll say also like the speed, but I will say like actually the speed not in the matter of like the technology, but more about the company building. Like you truly build different types of companies today. I just had a talk with Gal earlier about CS, and now we're doing like a lot of adjustment in our CS organization. And I told Gal that CS for me it always became like another like sales like function, because if in our like previous company that I worked for, when you sold a specific like product for a customer, it means that you found a business objective that your product can truly like help them to achieve. And if you delivered and if you executed properly, so you would have like renewal also like on the following year. And today I feel that like with all of our customers, when we sell a product, we basically, the only thing that if we deliver and execute exactly on that product, the customer will never renew, because like in 12 months, like all the use cases are going to evolve so much. The only thing that it gets us is to be the first priority, like the first one in the line to sell again in 12 months from now. And so how you, like the type of talent that we bring, the different processes that you need like to build in the company is truly fundamentally different than any other like company that I worked in the past because of how fast the technology moves.
So you mentioned a change in talents. What is the big change that you're seeing?
So specifically in this example, one of the things that like we did in the company is to understand that we need to start embedding much more sales processes and mindset also like as part of like the CS. So we started like to hire solution engineers to do work of like technical account managers. Something that again like in previous companies I would never even like consider to do. On the product side, it will be like another like type of change of like mindset in talent, in the sales as well. Like each different like function has their own adjustment.
I completely agree. I think there are two main. There are all the obvious stuff that would probably resonate with everyone, which is the company is being built differently and the way that you pursue your market is different, and everything became very very fast. This is all obvious stuff. I think there are two main changes that you need to be aware of. One is the type of different people that you need to hire. So it's like pre-Google and post-Google, pre-internet, post-internet. So people that weren't like, didn't use Google before Google existed, they basically approached problems differently. They searched for a book, or they had to educate themselves much longer. And then Google came and it changed the whole way that you approach different problems. So of course you should basically hire completely different people, or you should just make sure your people are well aware of how to use and leverage the AI and different capabilities that are currently very, very common to your advantage. So that's one. And I think the second one is that now you have a completely different competitor. So pre-Cloud Code and Codex and all the AI, I think your biggest competitors were other products. And now your biggest competitor is your customer. So everyone feels empowered, everyone feels like they are very capable to develop their own product, to try to address their own use cases and problems. So you need to convince them, and this is why I think services and software companies are doing really good. You need to convince them that you can offer a impose some additional value on you and your AI. It's completely different. So SaaS companies now need to become a SaaS plus, and this is why I think CS came to this whole conversation, because now it's not enough to just give you a SaaS product, because it might not be different enough from just Claude with enough resources and time. So it's very different. Everyone should be aware of it. And yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what have been said before. I want to touch on 2 points. I think the first point is talent. Right? If in my previous companies we were always after the best, whatever, engineers, software engineers. I think today a great software engineer is something entirely different from what a great software engineer was 5 years ago, and it's a skill that's very difficult to find. I see that AI actually empowers very few people, and the vast majority of engineers actually don't know how to use that well, and they just turn off their brains, and then the result is not actually net positive, it's actually net negative. So, we had a lot of experience in the last year working with a lot of different people, and it's very, very challenging to adopt AI in a very good way that drives value over time. And I think that's one key differentiation, mostly in the R&D space. And the other one, at least for me, it's like I'm selling to a totally different ICP. I'm not selling to a human anymore. My user on the platform is an agent. When I think about usability, I'm thinking like, what would an agent want? What would make it easy for the agent to use my platform? What would it make it easy for the agent? Like, how would an agent choose my platform and choose between me and my competitors when selecting the product, right? So that's I think that's a totally new perspective, and I think that's going to impact a lot of other businesses as well.
Yeah, I know that was a hot topic of conversation within AWS is how do we balance sort of our traditional human customers that pick us, but also knowing that agents are increasingly making infrastructure choices on fascinate, who knows why sometimes. It's all good. So speaking of the models and things like that, obviously all of our businesses have benefited and grown from all of the innovation in the model space. But I think that it also really changes the way that we need to act and we need to build. So how do you think about the work that you do in a way that kind of benefits from the models, but also differentiates from them and it's a value add? Question for any of you.
I think what we're seeing across the board, and I think it was already said to some extent, but a lot of people are building their own agents, and that's again the observability space, DevOps space. There's not a single company I talk to that doesn't have necessarily agents and soldiers doing some stuff. I think where we see some of the challenges these companies are having and where they need help is obviously the context, right? So what do you give the agent? What tools do you give them? What data do you give them? How do you massage the data so that they can be effective with it, right? So that's to me where a lot of the road becomes, because like, what can the agent do? Everybody has the same access to code. Everybody can do a lot of things themselves. But like, how can you consistently generate good tools and good data so that the agent can actually use it to reason over and work with? That's really the key thing. And to say one more thing on that is that it's again, we deal with telemetry data, vast amounts of data, tens of terabytes of telemetry data daily. Figuring out the data schema one time is great, but that changes. So that you need constantly to understand and constantly expose that to the agent. So it's not just about doing something one-off, it's about constantly living that sort of like a framework around the agent so that it can be effective.
I think that in our space, maybe it's a bit easier than for others. One thing I'll say, I think that like in most spaces it's really accurate, and the biggest competitor became the build versus buy. I think specifically security and governance, sometimes it's even like being perceived more like the insurance policy, but like you truly need like another third partner to help you to govern everything. And in addition, I believe that like we truly believe in a lot of expertise about like having like the signatures of what is a suspicious behavior of agents, of a group of agents, what are the different compliance and frameworks that you want to tie everything that like happens in the organization to. So there is still like important like third-party expertise that needs to be like embedded as part of like the data that is embedded in the agents. And also something that is a bit boring, but even like all the different kind of like integrations to the old security stack and the old security ecosystem that you already have like in the organization, that you need to make sure that everything plays well together.
Do we have enough time?
We have time?
Up to you. Anyway, I might be like the minority voice here, but I think people tend to give like AI agents a little bit too much credibility and credit. I think agents are as good as how you instruct them and your orientation as a company, your knowledge. It's very, very similar to just hiring people. You can hire the best talent. They can be like, the highest IQ people you can find, but eventually the tasks that you let them do, they eventually consume time, tokens, and it depends. So it doesn't matter how many like AI agents and people that will take odd and other agentic harnesses, how much they will do. It depends on how are they going to actually use their time and their resources to produce anything, to produce something meaningful. And I had a meeting today with one of Legora's investors, the law firm, the company that competes with Harvey AI. And he told me about the day that Tropic released their law agents, I don't remember, the legal agents. And he told me it was like kind of frightening at first, but then they saw that actually big law firms cannot adopt that. It's not that simple. You need much more than just AI, generalist AI that will take some skill and try to do some work for you. You need something more than that. And I think there will be a lot of opportunities for companies to actually take this AI and make it more accurate, make it more productive. And people also need guidance. So your customers need guidance. They sometimes need you to tell them what they should do, because sometimes it's just in a specific role, someone expects them to just show outcomes, to show the ROI. They're confused, no idea how to actually show the ROI. So you should actually teach them what they should do many times. And this is what's left for many of us, many of the vendors, to direct our customers to produce more. So I think it's a huge opportunity, much more than it's like something that pulls you back and compete with you.
Erin, do you want to close this out?
Yeah, sure. So to God's point, I think the supply creates the demand here, right? So when Tropic comes out with a simple legal agent, it kind of creates interest, sparks the interest, right? And that creates the demand for something that is specialized. So I think we see that in every category. And I think there is also an evolution, right? We went to foundational large language models, and then we fine-tuned them, and then we gave them skills. And now people are going all the way to open source models, right? And small language models that might be outperforming the large models on specific tasks, and obviously outperforming on cost. And I think we're not even seeing the beginning. We're kind of maybe at the end of the beginning, because nobody said that transformers is the right architecture that we will end up with, right? So I think it's just like what we've seen in the past few years, which have been a lot, is just the beginning.
Well, thank you all so very much, and I'm really excited to see what you keep building and keep up with